Hi, welcome to my kitchen. My name is Sue, and today we're going to make pita, Greek pita, Spanakopita and Tiropita. Spanakopita is spinach pie, and Tiropita is Greek cheese pie. For both pitas, you'll need eggs, phyllo, the thin pastry, olive oil, butter, and also cottage cheese. For the Tiropita, you'll need the combination of the cottage cheese with feta cheese, which is the Greek cheese. For the Spanakopita, you'll need cottage cheese, feta cheese, spinach, green onions, mint, and dill. As with anything where you're using phyllo dough, you need to have your fillings and all your ingredients prepared beforehand. Phyllo dough dries out quickly, and so it has to be the last thing that you deal with. So the first thing we've got to do is get our fillings ready. And I'm going to show you today how to make the Tiropita filling with just the cheese and the Spanakopita filling that has the spinach and the green onions. I've got to tell you this, Spanakopita is my favorite. I think I could eat it every single day and not get tired of it. It's absolutely delicious. And today I'm going to show you how you can make the regular version and also a lower fat version of both Spanakopita and Tiropita. So maybe you can enjoy it just a little bit more often. To make Spanakopita, you're going to need 2 packages of frozen chopped spinach, and you need to let it thaw, or you can just thaw it in the microwave. Now, because this is a filling for pita, for the phyllo, you don't want it runny. So once it's thawed, you've got to actually squeeze dry the thawed spinach, and I'll show you what we do over here. All right, you can see with this package of frozen spinach, it is thawed, but it's very, very watery, and this is what you want to get out. So get the spinach in your hand and look at it. Just squeeze out as much as you can. It's really important. This step is important. Otherwise, you're going to have a very watery filling, and what it will do is it'll just kind of seep all through the phyllo layers, and the layers won't get crispy. They'll just get soggy. And if you got soggy phyllo, you might as well have used something else other than phyllo. The purpose of the phyllo is to get it nice and crispy. Okay, so I'm massaging this spinach and squeezing out as much of the liquid as possible. That looks pretty good. I'm done with this bunch, and I'll go on to my next box of frozen spinach. We've drained and squeezed dry our chopped spinach. You can see it here. It's pretty dry. Somebody with a little more muscle power in their hands might be able to do a better job, but this is okay for me. The next step would be to add eggs. 5 eggs. Just beat the eggs lightly. Doesn't have to be perfect. All right, this is good enough for me. Add the eggs to the spinach. Next, add the cottage cheese. As I said earlier, I was going to tell you how to make Spanakopita a kind of low-fat version. Well, one thing you could do to lower the cholesterol is instead of using 5 large whole eggs, you could use the equivalent of a product like egg beaters. So for those of you who are cholesterol conscious, you could do that. Substitute egg beaters. It'll work just fine. Now I'm using a large carton of low-fat cottage cheese. Certainly you could use full-fat cottage cheese, and again, if you were concerned about calories and cholesterol, it will work if you use absolutely non-fat cottage cheese. So that will help cut down on the cholesterol and the fat. In addition, you can also use a large carton of ricotta cheese. And with the ricotta cheese, you can do the same thing. You can use the non-fat ricotta cheese. You can even use 2 large cubes of cream cheese instead of the cottage cheese. And the same idea. You can use regular cream cheese, low-fat cream cheese, or even non-fat cream cheese. Okay, we can mix this up a little or just leave it. Let's go to the next step, which is to chop up an entire bunch of green onions. Not 1, not 2, it's the whole bunch. So here we go. Of course, before you chop the green onions, wash them and remove the unnecessary stuff. All right, so you're going to slice the green onions. Try to make them sort of thin. They do cook, but if you make it too thick, you might run the chance of having some raw onion in there. This is part of what makes the Spanakopita so tasty, all this onion. I love it. My eyes are tearing a little. These are really strong onions. But anyhow, they're chopped, and they go into the bowl with the spinach, cottage cheese, and eggs. Now, this is looking pretty good. The thing that makes this Greek is the feta cheese and actually the spices. You can buy feta cheese already crumbled up so that you don't have to cut it up, or you can buy an 8-ounce package of feta cheese and chop it up yourself. And add 8 ounces of crumbled feta cheese. Now, when it comes to using feta cheese in food, you've got to be very careful with salt. Feta cheese is very, very salty, so there is really no need to add any salt to this mixture. Now we come to typical Greek flavorings. 1, the herb dill. Add a generous amount, up to 2 teaspoons to a tablespoon of dill. And also, you need mint. I'm in my backyard on my deck, and I have a planter filled with mint. So I'm going to pick some mint, cut some mint for the Spanakopita. There's nothing like fresh mint to use in your Greek cooking. Mint is one of those invasive plants. If you stick it in the ground in your backyard, it'll take over the whole world. So it's best to keep it in pots and give it a big pot so it can grow. And then give it a haircut every once in a while. You can use it fresh, of course, and then you can dry it. Or if you want to, you could snip the leaves off and freeze them and keep them. It's wonderful. And it's a necessity for Greek cooking. You can take fresh mint if you have it, chop it up, same thing, 2 teaspoons to a tablespoon, chop it up and add it to this Spanakopita filling mixture, or you can use dried mint. And this is mint that I've dried from my own garden. These are the herbs, these are the flavorings that make Spanakopita different from a typical spinach souffle kind of filling. But it becomes Greek when you add feta, dill, and mint. Okay, here you've got it. This is the filling. It's spinach, eggs, cottage cheese, dill, mint, and mix it up well. One more thing. The mixture could be a little runny, and to just add some thickening and substance, put in 1, 2 tablespoons of unflavored dried breadcrumbs. That'll soak up any of the extra moisture. Because as I said before, you don't really want to have a goopy, sloppy, wet, super wet filling. It'll just sog up the phyllo, and then what have you got? You got nothing. All right, the mixture is completely mixed now, and now I can set it aside and get ready for the phyllo portion of the Spanakopita. But before that, I want to show you the filling for Tiropita. Tiropita is simply feta cheese, cottage cheese, eggs, and that also is one of the traditional Greek fillings for Pita. To make Tiropita, it's even simpler than the spinach Spanakopita. You need 5 eggs, 5 eggs, beat them slightly. Okay, that's good enough. To the eggs, you want to add a large carton of cottage cheese. Again, if you're worried about cholesterol, if you're worried about calories, you can always use an egg substitute, like egg beaters. You can always use absolutely 100% no-fat cottage cheese. You can use a large tub of ricotta cheese, either regular or no-fat. You can use 2 large squares of cream cheese, regular, low-fat, or no-fat. Really doesn't matter. But our families always use cottage cheese, so that's what I'm using. Mix this up a little. And the thing that makes this a Tiropita is the TD, which is the Greek word for cheese. So you need a half a pound, at least a half a pound of traditional feta. All right, this is a half pound. This isn't crumbled, obviously. So I'm just going to kind of chop it up myself. You can find feta at almost any grocery store, but sometimes you won't be able to find it chopped, and some places you're not going to be able to find it whole. So it just depends, but you want to have at least a half pound. A little more than half a pound is fine, but a little less, and then you just don't get the true Greek flavor. Okay, one thing about feta, it's really strong, it's kind of stinky. It's a great cheese when you have little cubes in a Greek salad. It's great in a dish like the Tiropita we're making or the Spanakopita. It adds a pungency, a wonderful flavor. But I would caution you, if you overdo it, it's awfully salty, it's awfully strong, and in this particular case, too much is really too much. It will make something actually, I think, unpalatable. So stick with half a pound, maybe a little bit more, but don't overdo it. And be sure that you add, with Tiropita, 2, even up to 3 tablespoons of the unflavored breadcrumbs. Make it a little thicker. Get rid of some of the excess moisture so it'll be a good sturdy filling. Now this is definitely, I don't know if you can see it, this is definitely a lot juicier than the Spanakopita. That's because it doesn't have all the green onions and it doesn't have all the spinach. But it does make a delicious filling. We're ready to assemble. I've got the spinach filling ready to go. I've got the cheese filling ready to go. And now it's time to work with the phyllo. This is frozen phyllo already prepared. The only thing you need to do is thaw it out. Thaw it out overnight in the refrigerator. Then take it out and let it reach room temperature. It really needs to be room temperature when you're going to work with it. Or you can thaw it out at room temperature for about 5 hours. The phyllo comes protected in a plastic wrap, so just remove it and unfold it. And you can see It really is paper thin. And the reason you want to save this for last is because it is so thin and it can dry out awfully quickly. So you need to get working and get working quickly with it. Here's what phyllo, thawed phyllo looks like. I'm using my Pita baklava pan. It is a 16 by 11 pan, and it's the one I use for all these kinds of things. However, for people who don't have a pan this big, you can buy Pyrex brand glass pans 15 by 10, and they work just fine. A rule for working with pita: you must have butter or oil between each sheet, between each layer. Now I'm going to use olive oil. However, if you wanted a rich buttery flavor, you could use melted butter. That would work too. But I'm using olive oil for both of these. So the first thing you do is coat your pan generously with oil or butter, whichever one you're using. And that's bottom and sides. And on the very bottom, on the pan, be sure that you don't skimp. Be generous. Take the first sheet of phyllo and lay it in there. If it's possible, try and center it. If it doesn't work perfectly, that's okay. Now, I want to show you this. When making a pita, you want to have these sides of the phyllo because it's going to enclose the filling. Okay, brush this with oil, especially around the sides. If you wanted to try and cut calories here, what you could do is use a product like Pam, a vegetable oil spray. And it now has an olive oil spray. And so you could use that and spray it lightly, or you could use your oil pump like this, filled with olive oil, and spray. And that would give you a nice even spray, but not as much oil as brushing. Now, notice I have a little edge here, so I'm going to try on this sheet to build it up on this side. And you just keep layering the phyllo, brushing it with oil until you're halfway through the pound of phyllo. Use approximately a half a pound on the bottom, half a pound on the top. And if the phyllo is dry and it tears, it just doesn't matter. You keep going. By the time you have all these layers here, it'll be okay. This pan is ready for the filling. I've used half of the pound of phyllo dough, approximately 10 leaves, 10 sheets of phyllo, alternating them with either butter or olive oil. I just want you to notice, look at how built up it is on all the sides. This is because this is truly a pie, and the filling needs to stay in place. This smells so good with the onions and the mint and the dill. As evenly as possible, right up to the edges. Every bite should be filled with this wonderful spinach, cheese, onion mixture. Take these pieces of phyllo and just kind of push them in to envelop the filling. That's where the oil on the edges comes in, because it makes the phyllo pliable. Fold it over, and if you want, you can brush just a little bit of oil on the edges to get them to stay down. Now we're ready for the top. Take the remaining sheets of phyllo and put them on top. Remember to always brush with olive oil. And yes, this is way off. And I'm doing that just to show you it really doesn't matter. Sometimes you hit the stuff perfectly in the center. Sometimes you don't. It really doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is that you just keep working at it. Keep working quickly. And sometimes the phyllo will tear. That doesn't matter either. Just keep going. So the top will be about 10 layers of phyllo, alternated, always brushed with oil or butter. I'm going to melt some butter quickly in the microwave. The reason the butter is melted is for the very last sheet of phyllo on either one of these pitas. The last sheet of phyllo needs to be coated completely and generously with melted butter. That's because butter will brown, olive oil doesn't brown. And if you were concerned about your cholesterol, you could use margarine. Okay, so be sure that you have the top layer nicely coated, generously coated with butter or margarine. Now the pita is ready. We just need to trim it and cut it. When I say trim, I just mean take off all the excess. So you just need a sharp knife and just start and take off the excess. Cut it like so. And cut it here and peel it off. You don't want to go too far deep into the pan because then you start cutting into the crust that's enveloping or holding in the filling. But just cut off the extra stuff. Okay, I've got this pretty much trimmed. It's not perfect, but it's good enough for me. I want to make one more run over the edges in particular with the butter. Remember what I said, that the top layer needs to be brushed with butter, or if you're concerned about cholesterol, with margarine, because that allows it to brown nicely. Olive oil gives a wonderful flavor, but butter browns. Now we're going to cut the pita before it bakes. However, you're only going to cut through the top layers. Remember, you've got a kind of goopy, wet filling. If you cut all the way through, the egg mixture is going to seep out all over the place and destroy the flaky phyllo at the bottom. So we're only going to cut through the top layers of phyllo and more like scoring it. This way, when the phyllo's all baked and it's crispy, you can cut through, but you won't be shattering the phyllo. I'm going to make them in this particular pan about 2 1/4 by 2 inches. Figure out how large you want those pieces. Just notice what I'm going to do. I'm cutting carefully just through the top layers. I don't want to go all the way through to the bottom. I really don't even want to see the spinach. What you're doing is you're just, in a sense, you're just scoring the dough so that it will be easier, neater to cut once the pita is baked. Okay, the Spanakopita is cut, and you can see I've made pretty nice sized pieces, but it hasn't been cut all the way through. Our pita is ready to bake. It's cut, trimmed, brushed with butter, all set. You need to bake it in a preheated 350-degree oven for at least 45 minutes. After 45 minutes, you should start checking it. The top should be nice, toasty, golden color. In we go. It's been about an hour. I checked the pita at 45 minutes and it seemed like it needed some more baking. So it's been an hour and I'm going to look at it now. It's nice and toasty, golden brown, so it's just perfect. I've got both pitas baked. This is the Spanakopita with spinach and this is the Tiropita with just the feta cheese and eggs. You need to let the pitas rest, cool, for at least 15, possibly 20 minutes before you cut them. These have rested, these have cooled. Now what you're going to do is you're going to cut all the way through where you scored before. Okay, I'm getting to the end. I've cut through all the pieces. You can serve the pitas warm after they've cooled down for about 20 minutes. You can serve them room temperature, and they're very tasty the next day, even refrigerated. They're delicious anytime, any temperature. Doesn't that look good with the phyllo and that delicious spinach filling? And there you have it, delicious Spanakopita, delicious Tiropita, a real Greek taste treat. No, I don't share Spanakopita with anyone. See you later.